One of the biggest questions of White Sox spring training has been answered. Let's discuss Sean Burke being named the opening day starter on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the set expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, everydayers might recall me discussing Sean Burke being a dark horse candidate to be the team's opening day starter. Well, manager Will Venable has made that news official, and I'll discuss why he got the nod and why it's a good call. Then the White Sox have ended the Joey Gallo experiment, although the former slugger wanted to end it as well, as he is now focusing on becoming a pitcher to give himself a shot to make it back to the majors. And finally, it's a minor league Monday, so let's go over some troubling news regarding Mason Adams and how the Sox Spring Breakout Showcase team did. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Okay, so I remember last year panning the White Sox decision to have Garrett Crochet to be the opening day starter. Wrote about it extensively on the Southside Showdown. I've never been so glad to be loud wrong. I will admit my hand and be like, I am glad I was loud wrong. Because despite only having 73 career big league innings and never starting a big league game, Crochet went on to become the one good thing during that horrific 2024 season. He developed into an ace, made the All-Star team, but sadly he had to go this offseason because the team wasn't interested in extending him and they needed the return in a trade, in the trade market to replenish their farm system. So now the White Sox are going back to the same concept by naming Sean Burke the opening day starter, despite veteran Martin Perez and fellow inexperienced starter Davis Martin maybe having better spring trainings. That's not to say Burke is not pitching well himself. It's just, in 3 starts this spring, Burke owns a 4.15 ERA, although a couple of those runs have come via the long ball, just a couple of mistakes, getting, placed out of the ballpark. He's given up 9 hits, 2 home runs. That's kind of inflated the ERA, but 5 walks and 6 strikeouts over 8 1/3 innings. You compare that to Perez, who has a 3.0 ERA. He's allowed 13 hits, 4 earned runs, 10 Ks, and 3 walks, and he's pitched a heck of a lot of MLB games. So you're thinking, why not just go with the veteran? Or why not go with Davis Martin if you're going to go with an inexperienced pitcher? Because he's allowed just 1 hit in 2 official spring training starts. He's also been downright unhittable in backfield games, as it's been reported. However, if it comes down to who has the potential to have ace stuff, well, Martin Perez's, days of being a potential ace, those are long gone. He's already had his career season. And when it comes to Davis Martin, yes, that kick change has been devastating in spring. But it also gave up a 4.32 ERA last season. And when it comes to his ceiling, he's more of a, solid number 3 to 5 guy. Burke is still once a top 5 prospect. Burke's stuff still translates to hitting a ceiling of being an ace, where Martin, he just might be at best case scenario, a number 3. So that's why, it seems like that's why they're going with Sean Burke, because he still has the potential to be a frontline pitcher, where Martin, well, we don't know if he's going to be a frontline pitcher. We don't know if that kick change and his additional stuff is going to get, his ERA in that, low 3, low 2. It might just be, he might be a low 4 ERA pitcher. And again, Burke was once a top 5 prospect in the Sox system. And the only reason why he slid down the rankings was an injury-plagued 2023 season. And then another injury delayed the start of his 2024 minor league season. So that's the other thing you might want to be concerned. Is he going to have injury issues? You got to hope he stays healthy. But he did provide why he should not be a forgotten prospect with a stellar 4-game cameo last season that included 3 starts. And in those starts, he proved why he has the stuff and the mental makeup to possibly lead a rotation. And this is according to MLB White Sox beat reporter Scott Merkin. He tweeted this out for those watching on YouTube at Scott Merkin. I got the screenshot of the tweet out there, but this is what he says. I've said this since watching him at the end of last season. Sean Burke has that chutzpah, bravado on the mound that you can't teach. Of course, others have it too, but it's really noticeable with Burke. He's not worried about the big moments. And remember, I had Chris Lanuti from SoxInTheBasement.com on a few weeks back. And we were talking about who should be the opening day starter. And, part of being an opening day starter is that mental makeup, because you are most likely, maybe I would say 7-8 times out of 10, you are going to be then facing the top pitcher of each team. And you got to have that bravado. First, you got to have the stuff, obviously. But if you maybe don't have a ton of the stuff, do you have the bravado? Can you say, you know what? I'm not going to press. I'm not going to shrink away from these big moments. I'm going to go out and I'm going to throw my game and I'm going to get those outs. And Sean Burke has that. Although for those who are tweeting who, or, oh man, this game's already lost. First, if you think you're funny and witty, I don't mean this to be mean, because I fall into this trap too on social media and in discussions. But if you think you're so funny and witty, my suggestion, and this is part of me challenging you, go do a comedic set then on an open mic. Go put your name on it, like I keep saying. Hey, like I said, I'm guilty of it. I try to be witty in that, but I also went out and got a podcast to prove every day that I think I'm witty, humorous, that type of stuff. Although some of the haters like to say I'm boring, but you know what? It's called information, folks. Okay? And again, if you think you're smart and witty, go grab a mic. Anybody can do this now. Secondly, when it comes to those that are like, oh man, this is all lost and wow, look at where they're at. Until Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Grant Taylor are ready for the bigs, Burke is the guy among Jonathan Cannon and Davis Martin that has still that ace potential. Of those three, I mean, Jonathan Cannon has shown, and baseball already came for him. When you look at his stuff, it's definitely a back of the rotation guy. And Davis Martin, that kick change has been great in Arizona, but it's not like these hitters are reading up on the scouting report. So as much as I love Davis Martin, and he, think about it too, Cannon was originally my horse just because, he pitched in some big games for the White Sox when there was, the 22-game losing streak, a lot of pressure, goes out and gets the win. And he has been solid, but he's going to give up runs, and we're seeing that in spring training. And Martin, he was my next guy. But again, his ceiling seems more destined to be really good back-end pitcher. And that feels like Burke's floor to me. And you could say, well, he didn't have the greatest numbers in Charlotte. But that park is a bandbox. We've seen that. I mean, Sean Burke had a 4.84 ERA, comes up to the White Sox, pitches much, much better. I mean, his stuff looked much more crisper, But what he's got to do is he's got to cut down on the walks. That obviously needs a fix. But Garrett Crochet wasn't a finished product by any means, and he got the opening day honors, and he took off because, you know what? He threw hard. He throws well. He got strikes. Now, obviously, Burke doesn't reach 100 miles per hour like Crochet, but he can average 95 on his fastball, gets a slider over the right-handed pitching average of 86, and he can mix in his change and curve to get outs. It's all the stuff that can produce a top-of-the-rotation pitcher, so why not just give him the ball from day one, especially since he basically was very confident. He said, I'm going to make this rotation, because there was no guarantee that he was going to be the fourth or fifth starter. Now he's the opening day starter. And it's not like this team is going anywhere. And when you look at, okay, what hurdles these guys have to clear? For Sean Burke, when you look at the data, you look back at the video, the highlights, really the hurdles that he has to clear to be a top of the rotation pitcher, or even just like a very good number 3, is cut down on the walks. And can you adjust to baseball once baseball adjusts to you? Because yes, 3 career starts is still not enough of a scouting report and tape for hitters to be ready to realize, okay, I got to sit on this pitch. I got to be aggressive early on this pitch, or, this is the stuff that I got to do. It's kind of like Garrett Crochet, even though he had 73 innings, there was still not a ton of tape. And, a lot of people figured out, especially righties, if he throws me that slider over the plate and tries to get it down and in, that ball sticks up a tick, I'm going to crush it. So what does Garrett Crochet got to do? He's got to adjust back and be like, you know what? Maybe got to not throw that out so much against righties. And that's always going to happen. Baseball always comes for everyone. When you find out if they're good, like if they're truly good or they're great, is can they make the adjustment back? In terms of why the team settled on Burke, here's what manager Will Venable had to say via Merkin's write-up on MLB.com or WhiteSox.com. Quote, Sean has had a great camp. Manager Will Venable said, we probably had a few guys that were great candidates, but for us, as we're looking at things strategically to get off to a great start, we couldn't be more excited to name Sean our opening day starter. Everyone has their path. I'm certainly happy for Sean, and the fact that his has brought him to be our opening day starter, and really excited for him and the organization, end quote. And in terms of his peers of inexperienced pitchers getting this honor, Sarah Langs of MLB.com had this little nugget up on X at Slangs on Sports. So, and for those watching on YouTube, I've got the tweet up. Sean Burke will be the sixth pitcher in the last 70 years to start opening day, having made 3 or fewer career starts prior. Joining 2024 Garrett Crochet, 0. 2014 Tanner Sheppers, 0. 1993 David Naid. 1982 Al Holland. 1981 Fernando Venezuela. Sean Burke will be the 7th pitcher in the last 100 years to start opening day, having thrown fewer than 20 innings prior to. And basically, you got 81 Fernando Venezuela. You also got like 1937 Ed Smith, Preacher Rove 1944. I love that there. And Carol Yerkes 1929. He had 10 innings. So, you know, this has happened before. And the White Sox have had success, obviously, with Garrett Crochet. The Dodgers had tremendous success with Fernando Venezuela. But if you're still not happy and you're like, oh, who's this guy? Well, first of all, then you're acting like a Cubs fan. Number 2, Jeff Passan had him listed among the 10 players that all the scouts were buzzing about on ESPN. And this is what he writes. For the paucity of bright spots after posting the most losses in baseball history, the White Sox ended 2024 believing Burke would be a part of the rotation going forward. This spring has done nothing to dispel that notion. At 6'6" and 230 pounds, Burke pairs a high-octane fastball with an exceptional carry. His downer of a curveball flummoxed hitters during an impressive 4-outing cameo in September. A better changeup would round out his arsenal, but as long as Burke lives near the strike zone, he can subsist on a fastball curveball slider diet as the White Sox await the arrival of their 2 best prospects, left-handers Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, to fill out a rotation that could be the strength by the end of 2025. Well, Joey Gallo thinks he can pitch. Seriously. He announced after being granted his outright release by the Sox that he wants to be a pitcher. Let's discuss if this is a desperate attempt to have a shot at staying in the bigs and if the Sox should have given him a shot at becoming a hurler. Next on Locked On White Sox. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better-for-you unsaturated fats to help you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's a perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. And my wife and I were trying to eat more heart healthy. I was munching on some recently. Told my wife to give these babies a try. She loved them. She's hooked, just like me. It's a great, easy snack. And I like the roasted and salted flavor since it's a perfect blend of roasted and salted, so you don't feel thirsty after eating a handful. I also love the honey roasted too. Just tremendous flavor. It is a great quick snack too, and with the no-shell options, I don't have to clean them up around my desk here. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options, they are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money, you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. And I got to make sure I give a shout-out to... Hold on, I got to grab my email here because they've been there. So we're in the top 15 of White Sox podcasts, basically on podcast.feedspot.com. They have ranked us that. It's, top 15 prospects. You go to https://Chicago White Sox podcast. Check that out. They have great recommendations for all the White Sox podcasts. So obviously, I can play well in the sandbox. People have known me that I'm doing this for almost a year. I just always ask, make me your first listen. But then, yeah, make sure you're checking out the CHGO White Sox podcast and From the 108 and Sox in the Basement. And I'm going to probably forget a bunch of other podcasts. There's a lot of great White Sox podcasts. Just make me your first listen. That's all I ask. Well, turns out there's nothing left in Joey Gallo's bat. Literally, he even confirmed it as he requested his outright release from the Sox after going 2 for 20 and 11 strikeouts. It was a long shot to see if Gallo could get back to hitting home runs. So, this definitely felt inevitable. This was definitely a Thanos move. It was inevitable, folks. And plus, while they're not exactly mashers, you still got Matt Thaiss and Travis Jankowski who can at least hit from the left-handed side of the plate better than Gallo's basically all or nothing approach. I wasn't really a big fan of Gallo, like I said. I mean, it was a shrewd, prudent move, not the end of the world, but you kind of saw this coming a mile away. And you also have top hitting prospect Kyle Teal. He's making a push to make the big league roster. He's got some pop from the left-handed side, so you've got some potential there. So you didn't really need Joey Gallo. I just didn't. Looking back at it, I was like, okay, I know they wanted some left-handed pop, but it was clear that he stopped hitting home runs like years ago. He was no longer the 40-run homer power dude. But what makes this two-time All-Stars release so interesting is now he wants to pitch. He announced it on X that he is ditching the outfield and wanting to pitch. And the question is, why did the Sox then just not give him a shot? Since they're not going anywhere this season, couldn't hurt to, kick the tires on that. Well, thankfully, I agree with assistant GM Josh Barfield's reasoning. There's just no room for him in the organization because they actually have pitching depth. Where they needed him? To hit home runs. They needed him to hit bombs, and he didn't. So they don't need him anymore. So obviously, when he said, you know what, I want to be a pitcher, I would have been like, okay, I want to be 7 feet tall, but it's probably not going to happen, and it ain't going to happen here. So yes, we wish you the best of luck on your future endeavors. And I covered the Brooks Kieschnick experience in Milwaukee about 22 years ago. And trust me, it's not worth it to give these former sluggers a shot because, they think they can switch to pitcher because, hey, I did it in high school and I can throw 95, 96 miles per hour. You got to be able to have command there. And it just becomes a sideshow, and it's just not worth it because it rarely has any box office draw. Here's what happened according to Scott Merkin per Barfield in terms of how they got to the situation to be like, okay, thanks, Joey. Quote, he had expressed interest through his agent if it didn't work out in the major league team that he was going to explore the pitching side. White Sox assistant general manager Josh Barfield told MLB.com of Gallo's thought process. I know it's something he's been dabbling around with in between some of the reps here, but he asked for his release today, so we accommodated that. Where we are right now, it's tough to give him that opportunity. Yeah, it's not unheard of, right? You see it with Rick Ankiel going the other way and Tyler Naquan, who was here a couple of years ago. He just signed as a pitcher too, end quote. So, Gallo's joining this recent trend as former outfielder Brett Phillips. He was in camp actually last year for the Sox. He's trying to be a pitcher with the Yankees on a minor league deal. And then Naquan, Tyler Naquan. Yeah, it's Naquan. You know me, I butcher names. I'm sorry. He played a few games for the Sox a few years ago. He just signed back with the Guardians to try his hand at pitching. But I'm just glad the Sox are not getting involved in this circus. And really, that's what it becomes because you get this, you get these write-ups of, well, these guys are trying to become Shohei Ohtani. For every Shohei Ohtani, or for every, you got to go back, Bob Fuller. He went from a weak utility hitter to a star pitcher. There's so many failed guys out there. And usually when these guys, go from big league hitters trying this last grasp at saying the show, they're usually a lot younger. They're usually in the minors. You look at it and you be like, okay, this guy's got a gun. He just can't hit. Let's turn him into a pitcher, and that's the other thing. Bob Fuller is a great story about how he was a weak utility hitting fielder, goes off, fights World War II, comes back. Cleveland moves him to pitcher, and he becomes an ace pitcher, obviously, a legendary Hall of Fame pitcher. But again, he was still younger. There was still time in his career. And I get Gallo, might as well just call him Jerry Callow at this point, with the joke. He was a heralded high school pitcher, but, rarely does that switch work, especially since he's 32. I mean, it's been years and years since he's pitched. I mean, great, you can hit the cutoff, man, but are you going to be able to command? And you got to have something more than just a fastball. Like I said, in 2003, Brooks Kieschnick stole headlines when the Brewers were at a low point. So that's one thing. Like that's where my mind kind of went, was like, well, I've seen this before. A team at rock bottom trying to dig its way out. They've done this before, but Kieschnick was better as a DH. He hit 7 home runs and a 970 OPS and 76 plate appearances than he did pitching. A 5.26 ERA in 42 games with a 1.491 WHIP. And then he pitched again the next year. He was actually a better pitcher than hitter, but still, he was walking guys left and right. So while the White Sox, again, they're at the same point as the Brewers were in 2003, the Sox have way more pitching depth than the Crew had 22 years ago to basically not entertain such a ridiculous exercise. And in terms of like why I'm also grateful that it's not going to take away outings, MLB.com Scott Merkin pointed out Sergio Santos's conversion. Now, remember him? He was a great reliever for a little while for the White Sox, but he was a position player in the White Sox system. He's now the AAA manager, but this is how long it took him to prove he could be a big league pitcher just to even get a shot. Sergio Santos, who managed the White Sox Spring Breakout team Sunday afternoon and will manage AAA Charlotte during the 2025 season, began his career as an infielder before working into the White Sox closer role in 2011. Santos made 26 minor league mound appearances across 4 teams in 2009 before posting a 2.96 ERA in 56 games for the White Sox in 2010. So think about that. He had to go all the way down, and they needed 26 minor league mound appearances for him to even get a consideration the year later just to be a reliever. Do you want to give that to a 32-year-old Joey Gallo? I don't. I don't want those 26, minor league mound appearances being taken away, even though, there's going to be 5 guys potentially now in their top 30 that are going to be out for the year with Tommy John surgery. I want to give those innings to younger pitchers. If he was younger, fine. But at 32, you already got Cam Boozer filling that role of former washed-up player making a return to the big leagues. And Boozer has at least proved he got outs. He can get outs. He's a proven commodity. So you already got that guy. So thankfully, the White Sox have moved on from Gallo's career, I would say officially hitting rock bottom. Well, switching gears from rock bottom, let's discuss the team's bright future as it was on display on the Spring Breakout Showcase on this week's Minor League Monday segment after the break.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts. This show is available on all major podcast platforms. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate. I've got some Irish heritage. Definitely going to give myself some corned beef today. I love St. Patrick's Day. My daughter loves it. She loves it. She loves it when the leprechauns come to visit her. We kind of make it fun for her with the leprechauns dyeing the toilet bowl green. I didn't even know that was a thing. And my mom's a quarter Irish. So St. Patrick's Day was a thing in my house growing up. It was the one ethnic thing we did. But we never dyed the toilet bowl green until I met my wife. Apparently that is part of a tradition. So my daughter woke up, thought it was funny, hysterical, all that stuff. Well, despite losing 3-1 to the Colorado Rockies showcase team, there was a lot of good to discuss in the Spring Breakout Showcase. There are also some mixed results, too, and also there's some concerning news regarding a top 15 prospect to tackle in today's Minor League Monday report. In terms of the good in the showcase, pitchers Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith were outstanding as the team's top 2 pitching prospects, and the 2 top left-handed prospects once again looked great, and they pitched back-to-back in the spring game. Smith started the game through 2 innings. He allowed 2 walks, but struck out 1. 17 of his 30 pitches went for strikes, and he was hitting 96 miles per hour on the gun. He gave way to Schultz, and Schultz threw a clean 3rd and 4th inning, including 2 strikeouts. He was around 95 on the gun, but he was mixing in 6 different pitches, so I'm not worried about that lack of velocity. And hopefully they start pitching great individually, because you don't want them obviously piggybacking. You want them now to start pitching each start individually, because the whole point of this season is to build up their arms to be able to handle a major league inning workload. And it sounds like those two could be in the Double-A Barons starting rotation to start the season, along with Grant Taylor. As again, WhiteSoxMLB.com beat reporter Scott Merkin, he tweeted this out at Scott Merkin. There's a possibility Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Grant Taylor could all break camp as part of the same at Bam Barons starting rotation. Nothing is set yet, but that could be quite a formidable rotation. So that would be almost just as exciting rotation at Birmingham as what they had last season. And at one point last season, they had Drew Thorpe, Hydro Iriarte, Kai Bush, Mason Adams, and Jake Eater before Noah Schultz even joined them. And I think that's where those three should start the season. As I get, it is spring training, so it's still a relatively small sample size, but Smith has shown he can get big league hitters out. So why bother wasting those precious pitches at single-A Winston-Salem? And the same goes for Taylor. Taylor has proven he can get guys out. Why? Because, again, there's only so many figurative bullets in those arms. And I keep saying, I think the White Sox have cracked the code and have found the secret sauce in that you should develop your pitchers at Double-A. That's the development ground. The weeding out ground, is Low-A, Kannapolis, and High-A Winston-Salem. They then get to Double-A. That's where the development should be. The pitch refinement, all that stuff should be done. And the only reason you should be using AAA Charlotte is your parking lot. You just don't have a spot for them in the rotation. That's it. Because first of all, that place is a bandbox. And also, again, there's only so many pitches. I mean, we're seeing, and I'll get to it in a second, how many arm injuries there are. I mean, there's only so many pitches a pitcher has. So why waste them down, because it's got to go the traditional steps. Traditional, obviously, for hitters, they should be going to AAA just because, again, that's where starting pitching depth is. And even though the pitching's a little bit different, it's still good for a hitter to get some AAA at-bats. But the only reason a pitching prospect should ever be at AAA is you just don't have a spot for them, or they are legit organizational pitching depth in case of injuries. That's it. In terms of hitting shortstop, William Bergolla continues to impress. I mean, he's almost at the point, and I shared this on X, when I was tweeting my buddy Bez from On Tap Sportsnet. I mean, I'm thinking he might be the future at shortstop. I don't want to be like totally bold and be like, oh, because it's been a small sample size, basically 2 spring training games and this spring showcase. But he was highly regarded when he came over. He's probably one of the best prospects the Sox got in all of their midseason trades. And he's definitely showing he's got no fear. Nothing scares him when he gets to the plate. He scored the only run with a leadoff double in the 6th. Made a smart base running decision, too, when he saw no one's covering third. No one was covering third. So what does he do? Easily steals a base and scores on an Edgar Carroll sacrifice fly. That's why if Colson Montgomery is still going to have these back issues, maybe you move Colson off a shortstop knowing that, hey, maybe William Bergolla could be the guy. I'm not ready to that's where I'm ready to put it at. He could be. I'm not ready to say he is. I'm not going to make these bold statements yet, but I definitely have liked what I've seen out of him. But then that also goes back to super scouts. Like you only see a little bit and you think, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be amazing. And then it turns out, oh, there's a whole bunch of other body of work. So he still obviously has ways to go, but definitely was impressive. In terms of the mix, Colson and Brady Montgomery, not related, but 2 of the 6 top 100 prospects, they made some amazing defensive plays. They were definitely strong defensively. At the plate, not so much. Colson went 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, and one at bat that I saw, it just looked like he was pressing. I mean, he was just hacking. And I hope he's not putting too much pressure on himself to do well at AAA, to erase any fears that he's going to be a bust and that he's still going to be, the long-term option at shortstop. I don't want him to press. And I know he's going to strike out. He had a lot of strikeouts last year. But I hope he takes it easy on himself and just go out there and play, man. That's what they're saying. That's what Chris Getz, General Manager Chris Getz is saying. Just produce. Relax. Play the game. Braden was also 0 for 3. Also, in terms of mix, Kyle Teal drew a nice walk in the 6th inning, and the Rockies have good pitching prospects, but he's also 0 for 3 with 2 Ks. The Sox prospects managed just 3 hits. 3. So, hey, future looks pretty much what we're seeing in the present. But again, Colorado, I wouldn't get too worried. Colorado has some dudes on the mound. The other bad, top 15 prospect Mason Adams got some concerning news on his elbow injury. The promising pitching prospect, flexor strain in his right elbow, timeline to be determined. And you got to hope that this is not a precursor to Tommy John surgery, as the Sox are already down Prelander-Berroa. And Prelander-Berroa, who was expected to be a high-leverage bullpen arm, kind of had the same issue when he left a spring training game. That type of thing. So you got to hope this is not a precursor, because there are already they've already got 3 other top 30 prospects out for the year after needing Tommy John surgery: in Kai Busch, Juan Carolina, and Blake Larson. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew Ane. MLB Fantasy Draft is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow to go over how Baseball America ranked more former Sox players in their top 100 than the Sox have current players. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding Sean Burke being named the opening day starter, Joey Gallo being released because he wants to be a pitcher, and the Minor League Monday Report. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.